Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Savitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Prajamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ruta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Madhya Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prashanile Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome. We are starting a new chapter today. What chapter are we starting?
Universal form.
11. And what is the title of this chapter?
Universal.
So, this is quite a mysterious chapter, chapter 11. And it's called again the Universal Form. Right? How many of you have read this chapter before? Anybody has read this chapter? Only Amrit has? You have read it before? Years ago. So, this chapter is quite a mystery actually. It explains a very important concept. And so, in Arjuna's opening verse and Srila Prabhupada's purport, we get good insight into this whole chapter. But I know the first time I read this, I was sort of bewildered. What is all this? So many things are discussed, some kind of hair-raising topics are discussed, some quite gory things are described, but there's actually a very powerful meaning, like everything Krishna does has extraordinary purpose. So we're going to see and discuss his purpose. So we'll read the first verse today, and maybe I thought I'll give just a short overview of the whole chapter, so we can kind of get a sense of where we're going to be going in this chapter. We'll cover this chapter somewhat quickly, in the sense that we'll go through maybe multiple verses per week, as we did towards the end of chapter 10. So at the end of chapter 10, Krishna has described his specific opulences. And then at the very end of the chapter, he said, but Arjuna, what is the point to know about some of my opulences? This is just a tiny fraction. I've given you just a sample of my opulences. Actually, my opulences are unlimited. And he gave him this very powerful statement. By just a spark of my splendor, I pervade the whole creation. So that verse is going to be one of the reasons Arjuna is going to ask Krishna to see this universal form. Okay? So let's read the first verse and purport, then we'll discuss. If someone wants to read the verse?
11.1 translation. Arjuna said, by my hearing the instructions, you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects. My illusion has now been dispelled. Purport. This chapter reveals Krishna as the cause of all causes. He is even the cause of the Mahavishnu, from whom the material universes emanate. Krishna is not an incarnation. He is the source of all incarnations. It has been completely explained in the last chapter. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he says that his illusion is over. This means that Arjuna no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, as a friend of his, but as the source of everything. Arjuna is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. Now he is thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So in order to establish Krishna's divinity for all, he is requesting Krishna in this chapter to to show his universal form. Actually, when one sees the universal form of Krishna, one becomes frightened, like Arjuna. But Krishna is so Krishna is so kind that after showing it, he converts himself again into his original form. Arjuna agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna is speaking to him just for his benefit. So Arjuna acknowledges that all this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. He is now convinced that Krishna is the cause of all causes and is present in everyone's heart as a supersoul.
Alright, so Arjuna said, by my hearing the instruction you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. Right? So what is Arjuna's condition today, right now, as of this verse?
No more doubt.
No more doubts. He knows. What was his condition at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita? Confusions, right? Lots of doubts. So how did he come to become free from his illusion?
By hearing the instructions.
By hearing the instructions. Right? And who is giving the instructions? Krishna. And what kind of instructions, about what did Krishna give? What subjects?
Confidential spiritual subjects.
So the 9th chapter was titled Most Confidential Knowledge. And what did Krishna speak about in the 9th chapter primarily?
Bhakti, devotional service. Right? He spoke very detailed about devotional service. He glorified bhakti. He said it is so powerful, simple process. Anyone can do it. He provides what we lack, carries what we, preserves what we lack, and preserves what we need, carries what we have. He has everything, right? He's the swift deliverer, he's going to say in the next chapter. So he's given these confidential topics. So we should understand, what is the only means for us to come free from illusion? To know about devotional service. But not just to know, but to understand. Right? So Arjuna has heard in the right mood. The very beginning of the 2nd chapter, Arjuna surrendered to Krishna. Meaning, he became factually convinced he could not help himself. He needed help. Until we are factually convinced of that, we won't surrender. We think, I got it. We may hear still, but the mood of actually following comes when we fully are convinced. Just like if we go to school and the teacher is teaching mathematics. If I'm convinced I don't know and the teacher knows, then I will hear with attention and surrender. But if I go thinking I know, then even though I'm sitting in the classroom, what will my hearing be like?
Not listening.
Very passive at best, if we're even tuned in at all, right? That is nature. So Arjuna's illusion was dispelled because he heard with conviction, with this mood of surrender. So that is our hope also, that we can hear with this same mood. Because how many of us like to be in illusion? What does illusion lead to? Fear, right? Anxiety, stress, right? All those things. When we don't know what is going on, it leads to so much concern. So Arjuna is opening this chapter very clearly with this prospect of how to become free from that. And at the end of this whole Bhagavad Gita, he's going to say, I am now prepared to follow your instructions. So very calm, right? Okay. So now Arjuna is going to ask Krishna to show his universal form. And there are 3 reasons why he is asking Krishna to show his universal form. Prabhupada hints at one in this purport. What is one reason why? Yes?
Because he wants everybody to believe and have faith in Krishna.
Have faith in Krishna, that he is what? Yep, keep going.
Bhagavan.
He is Bhagavan, thank you. That he is the Supreme Lord. Right, he has said that the Muddha, the Buddhas think I am just some human. They ridicule me. They don't know who I am. Right? Now, does Arjuna know? Krishna said in the 10th chapter, he said, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. He says, I am the source of everything. So he established that he is the Supreme Lord. So Arjuna is convinced now who this Krishna is. He is, who is he? Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is going to establish that in the 15th chapter, in the 18th verse. He's going to say, I am Purushottama. Purusha, person, Uttama, the Supreme Person. He's going to establish it in the 15th chapter. But here, Arjuna has become convinced of this. So he is going to ask to see the universal form to help all of us come to the same position of conviction. Because once we are convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are convinced I am spirit soul, then there is no illusion. If I know I am spirit soul, but I don't know who Krishna is, do I have complete knowledge? No. So to solidify in our heart the same conviction that Arjuna has, he is asking Krishna to show this universal form. So that is one reason. Any other the other two reasons why Arjuna is showing? It's not discussed in the purport, so it may not be so clear. Oh. Well, you know Mataji? Don't remember from our it's quiz time. So the second reason is when Krishna said in the end of the second chapter, with the single fragment of myself, I pervade and support the entire universe. Arjuna was trying to understand, how is that possible? Right? We kind of wonder, how can Krishna pervade the entire universe? Where is he? Right? So we have that wonder. Sometimes when we hear these statements of Krishna, we wonder, okay, is this actual fact or not? So to satisfy Arjuna's curiosity about how this happens, the second reason he asks Krishna to see this universal form. And the third reason is in this age of Kali, we have lots of imposters. Right? And what do imposters do? They fake. And what do we see fake people claiming that they are? God. Right? We have heard of this once or twice. Unfortunately, particularly from India, we see this repeatedly over and over again. So Arjuna establishes now a criteria by which one can prove that they are God. You're God? Show your universal form. Now what? Now what any imposter is going to do? So Arjuna is very merciful to us. He wanted to first give us the same conviction he has, that Krishna is the source of even Mahavishnu, who what Prabhupada establishes here. He is the Supreme God. He wanted to give a criteria by which any bogus person, so that we will not become bewildered of who is Bhagavan. And three, to satisfy this curiosity. How is it that you pervade the whole universe? So these three C's: conviction, criteria, and curiosity. So keep remembering these three. What is the first question I'm going to ask next week? Three C's. Alright. What is the first question? So let's see who remembers next week. But this is the reason he asks to see this supreme form, this universal form. Okay? So now let's discuss a little bit about what is this universal form and how to see it. Anybody has seen the universal form? No, anybody? Why we cannot see it?
You're not qualified.
And what is who can give us the qualification to see it? Just Krishna. Actually, Krishna is saying, nobody has seen this form before. Arjuna, he's going to say that. But how Arjuna got to see it? Because Krishna bestowed the ability to see, the divine vision, this divya chakshusha, this divine vision. It was bestowed. It is not one that can just do on their own. Oh, I was meditating and I saw the universal form. It doesn't work that way, I'm sorry. So Krishna is going to establish that I am giving you the vision, Arjuna, to see it, right in the beginning of this 11th chapter. Okay? So, as Krishna shows this universal form, how big is the universal form? So if you go outside, right, and you're in an open field, right, you're in Kurukshetra, open field, and you look up, how big is the sky? If you're going to try to draw on the sky, like how much ink you would need, right? It's gigantic. So when Arjuna sees the universal, he can't see anywhere but the universal form. It takes up the whole of the sky. That gigantic. It's huge. Yes?
So what about the other people on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Can they see the universal form?
No, they can't.
Good question. No, they cannot. Only those who were given the vision. So they could see. So, gigantic form. So when Arjuna begins to see this, he doesn't even know where to put his eyes. Right? Like, you go and you see something, it's just overwhelming. Where to start? Taking it all in. And what the whole universe is contained within the universal form. It's beyond our ability to comprehend. Just like when Mother Yashoda looked in the mouth of Krishna, what did she see? Now how you can see the whole universe inside of something? That doesn't make sense, right? You can't see something infinite within the seemingly finite size of a mouth. So we think, oh, they just saw a picture, right? No. Actually, the whole universe was there. But that is the mystical potency of Krishna. So, Arjuna is seeing this. So as Sanjaya is describing this, and you can imagine how he is describing this, Arjuna's mood begins with this sort of awe and wonder. Wow, what is this amazing universal form? And he's beholding beautiful, helmets and jewelry, and then things, and he's seeing all this opulence, and different people are praying, and all the different wonderful personalities. But as he continues to observe, his mood then changes to fear. Because what aspect of the universal form does he see? Anybody know? Death in the form of? Time. He sees Krishna's Kala Rupa, his time. It is the all-devouring force. So we know time is pushing from beginning to end. So he sees things being annihilated, very gruesome. And so he becomes fearful of this universal form. So it begins in this awe. And so as we proceed in this chapter, we're going to see this change in Arjuna's mood as he begins to observe these different parts of the universal form. Yeah?
I'm not sure I understood, bro. How does he see time? Can you elaborate?
He sees the destruction. He's going to see personalities facing and encountering their death, which is very fearful for us to see.
Against Kali?
Kal, the time energy of Krishna. So we'll see this in the middle of this chapter, right in the middle. So this mood shifts. And then Arjuna becomes very bewildered. We become fearful, we become bewildered. And then Arjuna makes a prayer. And what is his prayer? I don't want to see this anymore. Take away this form. Now what's interesting is that Krishna is present on the chariot and the universal form is present. It means they are separate. It is not Krishna turned himself into the universal form. So the universal form is present during the duration of the material universe. So it is a temporary manifestation of the Supreme Lord. It is not permanent.
So Krishna's still there, right? Like he's
Krishna is still on the chariot discussing Arjuna. Behold my universal form, like that. Right? So this universal form is a temporary manifestation. Something, because it's so gigantic, it must be supreme. Right? That is when we apply our logic to things. But it is just a temporary manifestation that takes place within the material realm. It's upon which the whole material universe. So when Krishna says, by a single fragment I pervade the whole universe, this is how? Through this universal form. Okay? So Arjuna begs, I don't want to see this anymore. And then he says, show me your forearm form. So then Krishna winds up the universal form and bestows in front of him his forearm form. And then Arjuna says, I want to see your original form. And he shows then his two-armed form. And Krishna then explains at the end of this chapter, and this is really a critical point in conclusion of this chapter. He says, Arjuna, this form you are now seeing of mine, the two-armed form, it's very, very difficult to see. Even the great sages and demigods don't see nor understand this form that you are now seeing. And then he says, the only way to know about this form is by the process of unalloyed devotional service. And then he speaks about how to perform unalloyed devotional service. It is by pure bhakti that the rarest of the rare soul can understand Krishna in his original form. So by this transformation, Arjuna is, for our benefit, having Krishna display his position as the Supreme Lord, and also to give us that conviction that this Krishna that Arjuna is speaking to is none other than the Supreme Personality of God. Okay? Yes?
Was there a reason why Arjuna asked to see the forearm formed version?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Why he, our Acharya's comment on that, so we'll discuss that. Yeah? Okay. So, the conclusion of this chapter is in the last two verses. He says, this form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood by simply studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. That is the 53rd verse. And in the 54th verse, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. And then the final verse, Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is the friend to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So, Krishna is giving us the key insight into this understanding of how to see this universal form. Okay? So this is the summary of chapter 11. And we'll get very into some various features and somewhat mysterious, but we'll keep this overview in top of mind. Why we are seeing it, and ultimately the conclusion, the conviction that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the object of our love. Then we become free from illusion and ultimately attain Him, right? So, we'll just read the second verse. So in the second verse, Krishna says, O lotus-eyed ones, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity, and have realized your inexhaustible glories. Inexhaustible. Someone wants to read the purport?
I'll do it.
Please.
Arjuna addresses Lord Krishna as lotus-eyed. Krishna's eyes appear just like the petals of a lotus flower out of his joy, for Krishna has assured him in a previous chapter, I am the source of the appearance and disappearance of this entire material manifestation. Arjuna has heard of this from the Lord in detail. Arjuna further knows that in spite of his being the source of all appearances and disappearances, he is aloof from them. As the Lord has said in the 9th chapter, he is all-pervading, yet he is not personally present everywhere. That is the inconceivable opulence of Krishna, which Arjuna admits that he has thoroughly understood. What does aloof mean, Prabhuji?
Aloof, not present. Right? So, sometimes we are sitting in one place and our mind is another place. So we are aloof, not having any idea what is going on here. That never happens here though, right? Yes. So Arjuna again is convinced of these inconceivable opulences, how one can be present but also aloof at the same time. There is an inconceivable opulence of Krishna. Right? And we'll just read one more verse in purport and then we'll listen. Someone wants to read the third verse?
O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours.
Purport?
Should I go for it?
Yeah.
The Lord said that because he entered into the material universe by his personal representation, the cosmic manifestation has been made possible and is going on. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is inspired by the statement of Krishna. But in order to convince others in the future who may think that Krishna is an ordinary person, Arjuna desired to see him actually in his universal form, to see how he is acting from within the universe. Although he is apart from it, Arjuna's addressing the Lord as Purushottama is also significant. Since the Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is present within Arjuna himself. Therefore, he knows the desire of Arjuna, and he can understand that Arjuna has no special desire to see him in his universal form, for Arjuna is completely satisfied to see him in his personal form of Krishna. But the Lord can understand also that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to convince others. Arjuna did not have any personal desire for confirmation. Krishna also understands that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to set a criteria for in the future there would be so many impostors who would pose themselves as incarnation of God. The people therefore should be careful. One who claims to be Krishna should be prepared to show his universal form to confirm his claim to the people.
So you see this important point Prabhupada is making is that Arjuna did not have a specific desire of Krishna. Krishna, show me this, show me that. But his goal was to help others come to his same position. And that is the characteristic of someone who is very magnanimous. that if he has something great, he wants to share it. And he wants to share that conviction. And he also wants to protect all of us by this criterion. So Arjuna's asking of the universal form was not some, favor he was asking, or maybe taking some service to Krishna, but actually it was to help instruct all of Krishna's other lost children what to do and how to become convinced. So we'll pause here. Any questions or discussion on universal form? Nobody has seen it yet.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes.
So, I don't know if it's universal form, but like that guy Vasudeva Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
is this after the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, or is this before?
What?
You know the imposter, Vasudeva Krishna?
Oh, I don't know him.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know him. But there are many imposters before and after. Many today who claim they're different incarnations, different things, and unfortunately, we are prone to be bewildered. We are prone to search for shortcuts and this, that, and the other, and so people take advantage of one of the living entities' actual tendency, and sometimes we can say even desire to be cheated. Because if we have a desire not to be cheated, Krishna will facilitate. And that is why we're coming in contact with this in knowledge. Otherwise, how we would have these types of practical tools to be able to protect ourselves. It is only by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that we can actually have these practical protection mechanisms from being cheated. And a tangential point to that is, it's because it's so prevalent, it's why we have to be so careful. We have to be so mindful of what we hear, where we lend our ears to, because it's very hard in this age of hypocrisy to know right from wrong, and unless you're very expert in discriminating, then you cannot know. It's just like if you go and you're not a medical doctor and you see all kinds of medical instruments, you don't know what any of them mean unless you're an expert and you have some training. It's very difficult, right? So like that, it's a good indication for us to be careful. Yes, do you have a question?
Yeah, so first Arjuna asked to see Krishna's universal form, right? And then the four form Narayana, right? So why did he ask to see the four form Narayana? Same three criteria?
No, not same three criteria, but he's all, again, your father asked, so he must be the secret. I'll answer now. We'll also talk in more detail later. But Acharya's comment that Arjuna wanted to also establish what Krishna's ultimate form was. So by showing the four-arm form and then the original form, it leaves no doubt.
Well, first he showed the universal form, and then the four-arm form, right?
Yeah. Because Arjuna asks to see that.
Just one more question, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So, as souls, we're part and parcel of Krishna. I still don't understand what parcel means. I know what part of Krishna means, but the other question is,
That's more important even, or as important to know what the parcel means. Yeah, thank you. So what parcel means is that we are separated expansions from Krishna. So when we are part of Krishna, which means we come from him. We have the same qualities as him, or we can say, but not in the same quantity. We have them in very tiny quantities, but we come just like a drop of ocean water. When you pull it from the ocean, it has the same properties as the whole ocean. But the amount of salt in that drop of ocean is very tiny compared to the amount of salt, but it is part. Right? Now, unlike ocean water, where you can put it back in and it becomes indistinguishable again, that drop, we are eternally individual. So we are a eternally separated expansion. That is why we are parcel. So part of Krishna and parcel means we are a piece. It's separated. And so that's why Krishna says in the 2nd chapter, never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor shall any of us cease to be. Because one of the ideas that is propagated is when you do moksha, you merge back into the Supreme. That is not true. So parcel establishes our eternal individuality. And that is a essential principle in our devotional life. It is a eternal individuality. Though we come from Krishna, we are not Krishna. We are separated.
So the part I have very difficulty wrapping my mind around this is that we're eternal, but at some point we came from Krishna.
Yes.
So at some point we came from him. So how are we eternal then? Like God is eternal, but at some point we didn't exist, right? At some point we came because Krishna created us. So we're not eternal.
Don't allow or don't attempt with our material minds to understand that. You'll never be able to understand it. Because all we understand is beginning and end. Because that's all we see. We are fully materially conditioned. So all we can understand is beginning and end. But this concept of eternal, we don't understand it because we have no relation to it. All we can take it is on fact. Because it's coming from Krishna. That never was there a time that you did not exist. But we came from Krishna. Our minds cannot contemplate that duality. And it's not even worth trying, except we have to, that's where that surrender comes in. We have to take it as fact. Someday we'll understand it when we're back in the spiritual world where it becomes meaningless to understand, but you'll understand it. So, just like, bro, we always sometimes don't know how I fell from the spiritual world. That question, and Prabhupada said, who cares how you fell? Figure out how to go back. You don't go to the doctor and say, how I got sick, how I got sick, how I got sick. You say, cure me. Right? Who cares? Because we can't, like we were talking, I think with you, about time. How time can't be in the spiritual world. That we can't even wrap our brains around it. Because whatever we don't have experience of is difficult for us to relate to. And so that forces us to surrender to higher knowledge. And it shows, actually, our extraordinarily minuscule, at least speaking for myself, only intelligence. I don't have any ability to really grasp this. And when we read this universal form, we won't be able to grasp it. Wait, how this can be happening in the sky? It's virtually, if you want, read ahead the verses only. You'll be like, whoa. It's a good reminder. So that troubling, don't let it trouble. Just take it as.
Prabhuji, like before Arjuna saw the universal form, Krishna attempted to show to Duryodhana. Did he actually see the universal form?
He showed only a partial form of that.
Okay.
So Prabhupada's going to comment in the purport later in this chapter that Duryodhana saw just a partial feature. Also, Mother Yashoda only saw a partial feature.
Okay.
So this complete feature says never has been seen before. And so our acharyas reconcile that statement by saying that the previous ones he showed a partial form of it, but not the complete.
So my follow-up question on that is, how is Duryodhana even qualified to see the partial form of?
Well, Krishna's purpose was different there, right? His purpose in showing was to establish, don't mess, right? So that was a different purpose. Whereas Arjuna was asking out of devotion, and so his qualification to be reciprocated. So one was Krishna's desire to show. In this case, Arjuna was requesting. So then one needs qualification. So, but Krishna can bestow the ability to see to Duryodhana on his will. Right? So he didn't earn the qualification, but Krishna gave it to him. So that's the difference.
So another question on that universal form is, you said mostly it was around Kala, right? The universal form itself, like
Not
time.
mostly, but that is an aspect that we'll talk about. I would say mostly.
Okay, so it's not.
No, there's many aspects. And so Arjuna is observing the very glorious aspects at the beginning, and he's like awestruck. Thousands of heads, unlimited heads, bedecked with very beautiful crowns, and reciters glorifying and singing, and he sees all of that, which is very glorious. And then as he progresses, he sees very scary things.
So all of the thing that he has seen is something through the material universe, or like I was just trying to understand. Universal form is like, is it? What was like is it like everything from material thing he has seen,
No,
or it just
everything, the whole creation rests within this material. This it's not material. The universal form is spiritual because it is a manifestation of Krishna. But it exists within the material universe, and it only exists during the duration of this universe. So it is a temporary manifestation, whereas Krishna is eternally present. Right? So Krishna in his eternal form is eternally present. This universal form is a temporary manifestation, and we'll see. I mean, here's the picture, but how you can draw something, right, that's unlimited on a piece of paper, right? So all we can get is just some sort of, understand. But again, we won't be able to wrap our heads around every aspect of this. This will be very bewildering, very bewildering. And the conclusions, again, should be the vastness of Krishna. And then Arjuna says, take this away. I don't want to see this. It's too much. It's overwhelming, actually. Yes?
When you go down, because you said that you're always a part of Krishna, except sometimes you're lost. And when you go back to be part of him, and would you come back down and be another person?
Yeah, so Krishna is a nice question. So when you go back to the spiritual world, you don't become part of him, but you become part of his world, right? So the spiritual world. So you get to enjoy with Krishna. And we get to experience different relationships with him. But we remain individual even in the spiritual world. So you're a person. And Krishna says that once you return to my eternal abode, you never have to return here again. So he gives that assurance because now that we know what this abode is like, once we see again the spiritual world, we'll never want to go back again. Just like my son, just seeing the garla, I don't know what you call it. He doesn't want to eat it. Having tasted it once, he never wants to see it he taste it again. Right? So once we have tasted this material world, never again. So Krishna gives us that promise. We never have to come back. Now the next question will come, well, what if? Don't ask. Don't worry. It won't happen. Because Krishna is giving the promise. It's okay? Next question. Yes?
Follow-up question to you. When we say parcel, does it mean that complete, like in each Upanishad we have seen that whatever the expansions come out of Krishna, like it's all complete unit?
No. We are not complete.
So
We are
like
very diminutive, very partial. So the expansions that come from Krishna, like the Vishnu Tattvas, they are called plenary expansions. Those are full and complete and potent. But we are tiny spark. Right? So we have the similar qualities, but we don't have the same quantity. Just like spark from a fire. A spark is not fire, yet it is kind of fire because it comes from fire, but it is not fire, because it carries very limited heat and light. So similarly, while we come from Krishna, we are not Krishna, because we are a very tiny quantity of his qualities. Whereas when we hear this Om Purnamadaha Purnam, these complete aspects, it is referring to Krishna. Whatever he creates is complete in its creation. There's nothing missing, right? But it is not complete him. It means they are fully sufficient. And he remains complete, even though he's making so many complete wholes. Meaning, he is never depleted. He is never depleted. But his creations aren't all equally him. So
His creations in the sense what?
material world, his energies,
His,
all of us.
so all of us, right?
All of us.
So then we come under the complete unity.
No, that is not what's complete. What's complete is the whole arrangements of all the facilities. Those are complete. But they are not, he is the complete whole. Right? But so when he says I create this universe, it has all the sufficient resources needed for existence. That is what makes it complete. But it's not equivalent to him. It is still material, it's still finite. Right? So, we're getting very technical, but we are these what we call separated expansions. So we are not, if you put all the jivas together and added them all up, they would not add up to Krishna. Understand? Because we are all infinitesimal tiny sparks, but Krishna is the full. And if you had all, we would still be very tiny compared to him.
So we can never become complete, even when we go to spiritual world.
No, we are always the dependent on Krishna. If we are complete, we don't need Krishna. If I'm complete, I don't need. If I'm complete, why I would get sick? If I would complete, why my heart would stop beating? If I'm complete, why I need to eat? Right? So we know factually we are not complete. Otherwise, we would have complete, perfect opportunity. Right?
So the complete, there's two different meaning of complete. The one is complete and the other one is perfect maybe. Because all that emanates from Krishna is also complete. In here, like we are talking about like everything that came and like that's falling under proper place and it revolves like in a perfect way. So that's why it is complete, not in terms of it is fully complete.
Yeah, there is nothing missing from it that is needed for its purpose. It has all the requisite ingredients for its purpose.
So that means it's perfect, but not like complete
It doesn't have everything. But it has everything it needs for its purpose. Just like if I have a functioning car, it has everything it needs to move, but it doesn't mean every part in the universe is within that car. But that car is complete to do its purpose. So each universe is complete in that it has all the things it needs in order for it to operate. And by understanding that, who cares? What's the point? It means we don't have to endeavor so hard to try to acquire so many things. Nature is giving everything we need to live a sufficient life. Yet we still go to Somerset Mall. Looking for more. Because we want, but nature actually provides everything we need. So, it's okay?
Because I remember somewhere reading the purpose that we became complete, because right now we are incomplete just because we don't have proper knowledge of Krishna. But when we understand, when we connect with him, we become complete. So
we complete to our potential. If I have a 1 gallon jug and I have a 8-ounce cup, if I fill that 8-ounce cup to a full, it's complete, it's full. But how does it compare to the 1 gallon jug? That's full also. But are they the same? No. Both are, we can say, complete or filled. So our incompleteness is because we are separated from the Supreme One. So our feeling of completeness is achieved. We become fully for our purpose, but we are still tiny. Even in the spiritual world, we are tiny sparks. Dependent servants on Krishna. So we never become equal to him.
This complete means like whatever the...
To our capacity.
To our capacity. So
To our
living entity
capacity.
has some capacity. So that much capacity.
That capacity is complete. We are always, that's why it says, Nitya Nitananam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Eko Bahunam. There among all the eternals, there's a supreme eternal. And Eko, one, is maintaining all the other eternals. It means there's a distinction between us and Krishna. Otherwise, why we need to be maintained? Krishna is self-maintained. If we are complete like him, why do we need to be maintained? Because we have no independent existence. Because we are very tiny, infinitesimal sparks. Just like that spark from the fire, as soon as it gets away from the fire, it dissipates. Right? As soon as it separates from its source, it dissipates.
Another question on the universal form, Prabhu. When Krishna was saying about Bhagavad Gita itself, like to Arjuna, he said like, this knowledge is not like spoken now, it's been spoken to a sun god, it's been spoken to like Brahma, like it's been spoken many times before. So every time he spoke this knowledge, has he shown his universal form, or is it just only once and that to Arjuna?
Yeah, just in this iteration, he has shown the universal form. Not in the prior. He may have spoken about the universal form, but he did not show it. Okay. So this is a technical chapter, but the conclusion is unalloyed devotional service. Unalloyed devotional service. Unalloyed devotional service. This chapter has the potential to, start to rack our brain into like all these things, but we should keep things simple. And the 33rd verse of this chapter is one of my favorite verses, so we'll discuss how to be an instrument of Krishna's plan. It's a really nice verse. There are many nice verses contained within it. So while it is very technical, it doesn't mean there are not some really, really nice things we can draw. But let's not lose sight of the big picture as we get into some of this, because it's a little bewildering. Okay? Shall we chant? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitya Krishna Prabhu.